All right, so we're with Josh Rodriguez. He's famous for so many reasons, but not really famous. But within the friend zone, friend groups, everybody wants to be friends with Josh. Welcome to the Faith to Faith Gospel Cast, where we talk about all things related to God, faith, missions, leadership, side hustles, and what Jesus is doing in the next generation. I'm your host, Tommy Ashiro, and I want to welcome you to the program. If you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button and come back for a new episode each week. With all that said, let's jump into today's episode. What's up, Josh? Tell me about where you're from, what you're doing with your life, etc.
Yeah. I'm from Woodbridge, Virginia originally, but 11 months ago I moved to Los Angeles, California, so all the way across the U.S., and I'm currently running with my best friend Bryce Crawford and a nonprofit that he started called Jesus in the Streets.
That's awesome. What do you do for Jesus in the Streets?
I'm the videographer behind Jesus in the Streets. So Bryce basically goes into public, shares his faith with people, and I'm the one behind the camera recording it, editing it, and all.
So you don't get that many opportunities to be in front of the camera then, huh?
No, not at all.
This is what's going to make this special, because we always want to know what's going on behind the camera when Bryce is running into some kind of drama. Like, I guess if we're thinking about Bryce's video specifically, and that's where we're starting, how does that set up? Is there anything that's happening leading up to these conversations kicking off, or do you guys just literally just walk up with the camera and it's go time?
Yeah, most of the time, Bryce is usually just praying. I'm usually just praying when we're in the streets and we're like, all right, who should we speak to? We're usually trying to go for crazy people, just to show other people that they can literally just go to their neighbor, their innocent friend, and share Jesus. But yeah, we usually just walk up to people. Bryce will start up a conversation. He's super gentle, super kind. He has that Georgia Southern hospitality,
Sure.
So everybody loves him. And yeah, it's kind of an easy way to just like compliment someone and then get into the gospel. So,
and I suppose in LA, there's no shortage of people. Like, you have really the pick of the litter to start talking to folks.
You can just walk outside and always find people to speak to.
Well, as someone who's continually watching evangelism take place, you know, you're looking through it through your viewfinder. Maybe you're picking up on things that maybe even the audience isn't picking up on. Like, what do you look for when you're filming these conversations? Are there things that you try and capture, like, and catch when these conversations are happening?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I try and capture is emotions, because when Bryce is sharing his faith, I'm usually holding the camera, but more than that, I can obviously just hold the camera and do my job, but I'm usually interceding, like, Holy Spirit, pierce their hearts with Bryce's words, like, speak through Bryce. So I usually try and capture emotions, because when, like, Bryce is giving the gospel message, the Holy Spirit's encountering them. And it's so beautiful to see, like, people cry, and some people honestly get mad, and at the end of the day, it's a seed planted. So I just love capturing, like, their emotions when seeds are being planted and seeing how they react.
So I know you've been in LA for a year, a good part of a year. And is that your first time ever going to LA or?
Yeah, literally my first time. I've been to, like, California because I was living in my car, but, like, LA was...
Wait. You can't gloss by that because I was living in my car. What is that?
Yeah, I was on a journey. I left San Antonio for the summer, and I was just on a journey of deepening my relationship with God and seeking him out on a lot in my life. So I just decided to hop in my 2002 car and travel from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Wait, okay. I'm not sure where this fits into this
Right.
story. All right, so you how long did that take? How long were you doing that for?
That was probably for like 2 months. I was just alone in my car.
When was this?
This was literally before I moved to California.
Was that on the lead up to living in California? You like just kind of...
No, so I went from the East Coast to the West Coast, back to the East Coast, and I filmed my first video with Bryce in DC. We went to a Palestine protest, and that was kind of like our test trial to see if, like, we could work together and this would be like a good duo for starting the year off. And then it went really well, super successful video. So then we were like, all right, let's do this fully. And he was like, come move to Los Angeles. So a couple weeks after, I just hopped in my car again and made the adventure over to California.
That's insane. All right,
Yeah.
so you get to California. It's your first time in your life being there. What was your first impressions of the West Coast?
My first impressions was it was super dark, just California. A lot of hurt, a lot of emptiness in some people, but I felt like it was good soil, a good place to just pour into. So
What was the first order of business when you got there? Was it like, oh, well, you've been living in your car, so maybe vacuuming it or something?
yeah, I think sleeping.
Sleeping?
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to, I mean, this is all super interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Let's go back to like living in your car. Was the goal like to see America, like this spiritual / pilgrimage / see
Yeah.
the country thing?
Yeah. Well, a big reason was just like giving God my everything. I think during that time I was going through a hard time, and I was like, all right, Lord, you are my one thing. I just want to go. I just want to be with you right now. Like, I kind of just pushed everybody away at this time in my life. And I was like, all right, the only person I know that is faithful and will never fail is Jesus. So I'm going to be with him. And I'm not a part of a ministry. I used to work with a big organization before. I'm not with Bryce right now. I'm just going to do my own thing. So I hopped in my car, and throughout the U.S., I was just planting seeds, like gas stations or the beach I would go to or national parks. I was just planting seeds, loving people, sparking up conversations and sharing Jesus with them.
So how do you live in your car? That was that car that's outside right now?
No,
Okay, a
not that
different
one.
Okay.
It's an even worse car than the one that's
even
outside.
worse car than it's outside. Okay. How does one prepare to live in their car?
Honestly, get some bread, peanut butter, and jelly, and just hop in your car and start driving.
Okay.
That's the best way, probably.
So many questions. How'd you wash your clothes? Like,
good question.
yeah.
Well,
Smelly underwear after a couple days. I mean,
right. There's like this gas station called Love's Travel Stop, and they have like showers, washer machines. But then sometimes I was like, dang, I kind of want to be like Tarzan, or like I was in Cub Scouts. I was like, let my skills like be put to the test. So I would like hop in a river on the side of the road and like shower for fun.
all right.
Yeah, it was a good time.
I thought you meant Tarzan, like running around naked.
Oh, no.
I'm just going to wear a loincloth and swing from trees.
Not that part, no.
Oh, my goodness. All right. So bathing in rivers and loves. And doing laundry where? Just
At the gas station, Travel Stop.
they have.
Laundry machines and all.
Oh, they do.
Oh, yeah, it's sick. Yeah.
And you ate peanut butter and jelly for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Pretty much.
Wow.
And like beef jerky sticks. I was committed.
Sounds super healthy. Okay. And the finances coming to get from A to B. This is probably what a parent would ask. And I'm a parent, so.
I used to work with an organization, so I saved up some finances through that.
Gotcha.
I would sell a lot of vintage clothing, and that was like my full-time job, just reselling vintage clothing, thrifting and selling, and it's a whole cycle.
So the picture I've got is you with a shopping cart, and you're living in your car, so maybe growing a little beard and pushing your shopping cart full of clothes down the street. I think I've seen you on the street a few times.
Honestly, people probably thought I was homeless, but
oh my goodness,
it was such a good season because it was so minimal. Like literally all I had was a car, PB&J, and Jesus, like my Bible. So
prayer, Bible, and Jesus. There it is.
that's all you need.
That's all you need. And actual peanut butter.
Right.
And bread. Okay, so that's a new dimension. That's an interesting piece. I think you've inspired a few young people who I've talked to in the last few months. Try to discourage them from living in their car, but still it's happening in different parts of the country.
Oh man.
Young men who trying to have that responsibility conversation. No, I'm going to be like Josh Rodriguez and live in my car. Just me and Jesus.
Take showers in the river.
Take showers in the river. Be free like Tarzan. Oh my goodness. All right. Seriously, though, we went down a dark LA path there. Right. So you are from Virginia, but you moved to LA. What's Virginia like?
Virginia is super slow. I was like in a small suburb part of Virginia called Woodbridge, Virginia. Not too many people know about it, but lived there from ages 3 to 19. And yeah, just grew up loving soccer, hanging with my brother a lot, hanging out with my soccer friends, and just living like the normal kid lifestyle, I guess, going through middle school and high school.
Parents are Christians or not Christians?
Yes, Christian.
So Christian household. So then that means you were a poster child for growing up in a Christian home. Is that how this works?
Well, that's typically how it works. But in my case, I was in a Christian household, but I was always pushing God away because I had a lot of angerness and bitterness built up towards him just due to a lot of hypocrisy I saw, or people abusing like Christianity and Jesus. Like I would go to church and they're like, God is love. And then I would be with people and they're just showing me the wrong view of what love was, and it was hurting. And as a kid, all I knew was to connect the dots. Well, if this love hurts me and I go to church and they're like, God is love, then God is going to hurt me. So I always pushed God away. I always just kind of wanted to do my own thing, live my own life. And yeah, I was just living a double lifestyle, going to Sunday school and church camp, and then the next day bullying kids in middle
bullying
school.
Kids?
And yeah.
I never struck you as a bully.
I was a mean kid.
What's the worst thing you ever did to a kid? Come on, let's hear it. I want to hear a story.
We're going to have to bleep this out.
I don't know about that. Let's hear.
I don't even know. I know the biggest thing that I would do was I was so insecure. So I'd speak words of death over people to put myself higher than them.
I feel like this is the Christian version of this. Just tell me, like, all right, I'm the chunky little kid in the corner. Bully Josh sees me. What are you gonna do to me? I'm over here minding my business, eating peanut butter jelly, living in my car. What does Bully Josh say to me? Tell me what happens.
Well, I honestly don't know what I would say now because my mind
because you did all those things. All right.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. Go back. So, was it just words? Did you give people wedgies? What did you do?
No, I was never physical with people just because honestly I was like scrawny. I was scrawny.
That's fair.
I would just be so insecure. I had like this hole in my heart as a kid, and I wanted to be somebody. So I thought being cool was putting other people down and myself higher. So I would just bully them with words.
That's fair. I mean, you know what? A lot of us, did anyone ever bully you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, I think about my own testimony, and I went through my own be the bully phase, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. By the time it's like 10th, 11th is pretty bad. But it was, I think, at least the way I remember my own story growing up, I was bullied. So then I would fight back. And then it would take less and less to get me to fight back. So by the time I get to the top of the food chain, I'm starting to be the bully. It just doesn't take much at all. You looked at me wrong. You said something about my mom. You looked at my friend wrong. You insulted my sister, and it's all out World War III.
Right.
And now I'm the aggressor. I'm not defending anything. I'm just looking for a reason. So I wonder if there's any element to that in your story too, where it's like people mess with you, retaliate.
Yeah. For a long time, like during school, like I guess like maybe everywhere in the US, but I know in Virginia, like the schools I went to be the cool kid, you had to be like the one that was the funniest or the one that was able to put other people down to make themselves look better. And a lot of times it was just like this ongoing battle of who's cooler. So like one day they're your friends and then the next day they're like bullying you and like making fun of you just to look cool in front of class. So I guess through that hurt, I wanted to be the same person as these kids, and I would do the same to others.
Okay, but were you smart with your teachers? Because
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Were you always trying to like get a laugh and wind your teachers
My
up?
teachers loved me. Honestly, I would get in trouble sometimes, but it was like they were laughing while they were like punishing me at the same time. They loved me.
What kinds of shenanigans did you play on your teachers?
I think I was just like a troll to them. Like I would just one thing I will say is like I cared about them, but at the same time I'm still a kid and I wanted to be funny, so I would care for them, ask them how their day was, like hold conversations with them, but at the same time, like in class I would get on their nerves when I'm distracting the whole class and throwing things across the class. Like you see your friend across the class and you throw an eraser or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they didn't like that.
They didn't like it. So I mean, are these the kind of games? I mean, I wonder how much those games change between my generation and your generation, because we had like a whole variety of activities that we would do during class. Like we'd make the little paper footballs and we'd flick them back and forth, try and score field goals.
Oh yeah.
Did you guys do the paper footballs?
Oh yeah.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's always going to be around. That's such a fun game,
Okay.
but I think a big thing was the water bottle flipping.
Oh yes, that was big in that time.
Oh
period.
yeah.
That's
And then you
right.
try and cap it and it's like making a loud noise and the teachers are like trying to teach.
Trick
So
shots.
distracting. Yeah.
We also used to play a game called pencils. We'd have these little pencil machines, and you put, for the fancy ones, you'd have to put 50 cents in it and crank it out, and the pencils would come out and be all shiny and glittery. But we'd bite the erasers off and then like really bite down on the metal part and make it sharp, and we'd flick pencils and like try and break the other person's pencil.
No way.
We'd go back and forth. We'd snap the pencil, and then you'd take one, and they'd snap you, and whoever snapped the pencil, you get to keep the other people's pencils.
I've never heard of that.
Well, that was one of our little games we played in middle school. But we also used to play slaps, like this. You got to move your hands. The pencil's very similar. And then that upgraded to like knuckles, where
Oh yeah.
you played knuckles in school. Where
Yeah.
you got to move your knuckle and you get. Oh man, we were brutal. I think
know.
I busted a vein doing that one time. So brutal. Kids can be very brutal. I think middle school was worse than high school. As far as like people bullying and things like that, just that age group. Boys are terrible at that age
Yeah.
group.
Completely.
And yet so fun. So fun. So
Right,
many
right.
shenanigans. I still get along with teenage boys. Okay, so you're a horrible little bully. You're a horrible little punk kid. The teachers love you, but they're also annoyed with you half the time because you're pulling people off. How does a kid like you come to Christ? How does that happen?
Yeah. It's cool because now that I look back on it, I see the Lord pursuing me throughout my years. There's like little nuggets or drops of like just him revealing his love to me, but me not accepting that invitation. But I'll fast forward it to like the end of my high school years. It was during senior year. I remember going into this new class called leadership, and I was with my soccer coach. Her name is Coach Beckman, and I had a best friend named Jeremiah. I just met him that year. Him and I got super close. One of like the only kids that was like real. Like all these other kids are just fake, trying to follow popularity, all these other things, and Jeremiah was the one person that like was just real to me, nice to me, kind to me, didn't want any gain from me. And I remember the teacher was like, hey, write down the 3 most important things in your life. And me being someone that was still pushing God away, I wrote down soccer as number 1 because soccer was everything to me. It was like I was trying to fill this hole in my heart with soccer. And then I wrote down friends because I was still trying to fill this hole in my heart with being popular and having the most friends and looking the coolest. And then I put my family as 3 just because like their family. I in my mind, I'm Hispanic, so I always just like knew I had to have family around. But as I looked to my left, Jeremiah's saying next to me, and the first thing he writes down was God. And that confused me so much because my whole childhood, I was pushing God away. I was like, God is a liar. His love hurts because these people hurt me and they showed me love, quote unquote. And I was so confused why Jeremiah put love down. But after that, I went on a journey kind of just trying to figure out answers, like just thinking a little more about what's really out there and who God really is. And it wasn't until literally like halfway through my senior year, I get like 3 days off of school due to quarantine or due to COVID. And then they're like, hey, you're actually not coming back to school anymore. Like, quarantine is full lockdown. You're staying in your house. No more coming to high school. And during that time, I was super sad. I was like, never, I was never this, I mean, I was probably, yeah, I don't know. I was just super sad. I remember soccer being taken away. I wanted to play in college. All these friends that I thought I had all left. And I realized, dang, I just wanted to be popular and they weren't real friends. And all these girls that I wanted to like me stopped texting or whatever it may be. They just are all gone. And all this, like, I just felt like everything was stripped away. And I was at the lowest moment in my life at the time. And I remember being in my parents' basement. I was like living in my parents' basement just because I didn't want to be in my room. And I was going to like McDonald's every night, getting spicy chicken nuggets. And I was watching Netflix all day, all night. And through this time, I was still thinking about like, okay, what's out there? Like, why did Jeremiah put God first? And there's one night where the Lord encountered me with his love. And that's what literally changed everything in my life. Just like one encounter with the Lord.
What provoked that? Did Chosen commercial come on in the middle of your Netflix show, or what triggered thinking about God in that moment? Or
yeah, I was just crying. I was like, dang, I'm so lost. I don't know what I'm doing. And it was crazy because it wasn't anything I did or nothing provoked it, but it was just the Lord. And in a blink of a moment, this veil that's always been blinding me was just removed. And I finally understood God's love for me. A love that doesn't hurt. A love that never fails. A love that's patient towards me, that's kind towards me, that doesn't envy or boast. And I finally understood the cross and what it meant for me and what God was inviting me into. And it was like this weighted blanket on me. That's of just cool. His love.
All right, so this is the second time I heard this because we had audio problems the first time. Yeah. So I'm thinking this through now. All right, so I think I understand better actually the second time. So you had an actual trigger moment where you kind of just broke down.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You just kind of broke. So it's not like you were on an exploration for God, exploring God necessarily on purpose, but just had your fill of COVID emptiness and and God met you there.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really
just
great.
Just an empty boy.
Did you ask him to come, or did he come on his own?
He came on his own. I remember literally like I didn't have to do anything and he just revealed things to me. Like all this head knowledge that I knew he brought into my heart.
Wow.
In like this hardened heart that I had, he just softened. And I was like, okay, this is the cross.
That's really cool, man. So how do you get on that trajectory from COVID, lockdown, feeling lost, feeling empty, meeting Jesus, to ended up running around with Bryce for a year? How does that happen? Like, I know there's a big space in between, but how did you get connected to everything, you know? Yeah,
there's this organization called Pulse 100. It's like a evangelistic ministry, and I found them on social media through a mutual friend posting about them. So it was the last day to apply. I sent in my gospel, like a video of the gospel.
You still have that thing?
Oh yeah.
Can you send it to me? I want to see it.
I will after. I don't know. It's like deep in my camera roll, but I'll send it over.
I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want to see what your audition video looked like.
Yeah. And
so you sent this in. Pulse 100 is a year-long kind of mentorship, coaching, and being one of the next 100 evangelists. That's kind of the background. I do it too. So just thought we'll say that to frame it. So you apply to that. They let you in for some strange reason. That's your entry point to ministry kind of thing?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I was like a camp counselor, but like
kind
of a bigger ministry. This was like my entry point. So
wild. And you were part of that. I already know this because we just talked about it a minute ago, but you were part of that first cohort where things were fast and messy and nobody really knew what was going to happen next. So you jump into this thing, even in between retreats, those of us who were in charge, we're like, what are we doing at the next thing? We're not telling right now, but it's just know it's going to be awesome. And nobody knew what it was going to be. Nobody knew. But so during that year, did you even make it a full year before you started working for Pulse?
I did make it a full year before moving in with Pulse. Or no, I didn't actually. I joined staff. Did. Yeah, I didn't make it a full year. That's what I'm saying. So the first cohort was so all over the place, but some of you were making connections with Pulse and they were hiring straight from that pool. And that was all in the lead up to Together 22, right? Yep. So that's how you end up, like, they're snatching you and putting you to work for that event. Is that the first thing? For that event specifically. So when they took us on a retreat to the Billy Graham Cove in North Carolina, and they're giving us this opportunity. And I'm like praying with my best friends, Tanner and Zach. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna tell them I want to join their staff. So joined their staff, moved over to Fort Worth, Texas to help them for 6 months, put on this stadium event called Together 22. What did you do when you were working for them in that first 6 months? I was just connecting with pastors, going to young adults, like either sharing a sermon or sharing about Together 22, like just promoting the stadium event. Really? Yeah. So that you weren't on the phones grinding it out or anything? Oh, we had like 50 phone calls a day. Okay, you were on the phones. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you worked the phones, and I wonder if you called me that year. I don't know. Well, like, I did get a call from someone in Texas. Someone in that house you were living with did call me. And I'm like, who are you? Man, I'm part of this thing already. Why are you calling me about this thing? So you worked the phones. You went to young adult meetings, and you got to preach a little bit. That was like your entry level preaching experiences. Yeah. That's cool. And I mentioned a house, but you lived in a house with everybody else who was working, or? Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was my first time moving out of my parents' house. So what was that like, moving into a house with a bunch of other young adults? It was fun. Well, at this time, I dropped out of college to work with this organization. So I was taking online classes. So that, like, working with this organization, moving in with my best friends, it was like college experience, just living in a house together, worshiping together, praying together, and just doing everyday life together. That's cool. Yeah. And you worked on that stadium event, and then that was at the Cotton Bowl. And then what else did you work on with Pulse? After that, I went over to Oklahoma. They had an event called FTS in the OU football stadium, and that was a super cool event as well. They had like big artists, and it was like honestly a movement led by students, and Pulse was coming behind this generation and helping them out. So honestly, these students led an event, and I was just there helping as much as possible. Okay, so you worked on 2 big campaigns, like very large campaigns, multi-million-dollar campaigns. What were the key learnings from working for a big evangelistic ministry during that time? To get alone with God. Okay. Yeah. It was grueling work, I'm sure. Yeah. Right. I was one of my bosses, his name is Jeff Anderson, and he worked with Billy Graham, and a lot of times I would ask him, I'm like, how are you still like in the game? Mind you, this guy's old. Like, he has gray hair. Older and he's old. Oh my. And I'm just like, how did you stay in the game this long? Like, running with Billy Graham, doing all these events and not burning out, and you're still doing this for this day and age. And he's like, I got alone with the Lord. I memorized scripture. And I was like, okay. In the busyness of ministry, I want to get alone with the Lord before I do anything and before I work. So that's honestly the biggest thing That's cool. I learned doing these campaigns. That's cool. So actually, I think that's a similar kind of question you asked me the first time we talked in the lobby at a hotel. I don't actually remember what I told you,
but you probably don't remember what I told you either.
I would have to think about it.
I made something up on the spot. I was like, oh gosh, these kids want to know. But it was an interesting question. I think I remember the question more than the answer because I think that's a question we have to kind of continually ask ourselves through every stage of life is like, what's keeping me in this game? And that we have to continually buy in to specifically to being in an evangelism space, not just living for Jesus, but for like making Christian mission a big part of your life. It can be soul wrenching. I can't tell you how many missionary families I know who've fallen apart just because the life of a missionary is so hard. But I see you trying to figure out how to go all in for Jesus, living in your car, working for these big campaigns, grueling hours for these big moments, gospel moments that you're working towards, and then doing a year with Bryce, following him around. And if anybody's seen Bryce's videos, that guy is a squirrel chasing people all over the country, having these crazy conversations. And I guess you're chasing him as he chases people. That's very high octane. Are you talking about the big picture, next things that you're thinking about following that? Or?
Yeah, well, after committing with Bryce for a year, I've decided to now put myself in front of the camera.
Whoa.
So that's the big picture thing now, is just doing what Bryce did this past year and doing it myself. And Bryce has been a huge encouragement for me.
Really? You're going to get out there and do street evangelism? And
I am. Not a lot of people know about it yet, but that's
by the time
big
this comes out, it'll be happening.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose you're going to do it in your own style. Have you put a lot of thought into how it will look for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I filmed 2 videos already at college campuses.
Really?
Yeah. And I realized just running with Bryce, I'm like, okay, now I'm in front of the camera. Like, who has God made Josh to be? Okay. Like, I'll take this route, or I'll say these things. And I'm realizing I just have to be myself and let the Lord lead me. So that's kind of the style I'm taking, is just, who did God make Josh to be, and how can Josh share the good news? So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So what did those experiences look like at a college campus? Like what were some of those markers that you can look back and say, this is definitely a Josh thing and not a Bryce thing, you know?
Right. I think I don't know, the markers. I for sure laugh a lot. And when someone's speaking and I don't really understand their belief, I'm like trying to hold in my laughter as much as possible.
So you laugh at people. You're
I try
with
not
people.
to.
It's nervous laughter,
Maybe
right?
it is nervous laughter.
I laugh when I'm nervous too.
But I was at UCLA and I saw this guy that's like dressed in blue wig, looking crazy, and I'm like, I want to go speak to him and like see why he's like has this mask on. Like, why is he putting on like this persona? And I sit down with him and like he's literally like, he believes he's a koala. And I'm like trying to ask him questions about Jesus, and he's like giving me literally koala answers, like as if he's an actual koala.
What are koala answers like?
I honestly don't even know.
Eucalyptus or
He was like talking about like the winter and like global warming and how he's moving around. I honestly don't know.
So you're giggling while he's telling you this stuff.
Yeah, okay. I was just in disbelief, but I think like a marker that the Lord has put on my heart specifically that Bryce obviously has done and might do, but I really want to go to college campuses this next year.
Okay.
As I was at UCLA, the Lord really showed me like just college students distracted. Like they're so busy on their next test, their next essay, getting their GPA, getting their like 9-to-5 job, and they're not thinking about what's next, like what the actual like the biggest question is like, where do you go after death?
Yeah. Let me rephrase, and then I'm going to ask again, because
Okay.
you know, obviously these questions are open to your own interpretation, but I am thinking about something specific.
Okay.
So what's something that Bryce always does that you're definitely going to do when you do evangelism on college campuses? Like when you interact with people, like you're like, it's just going to be natural to do it this way because Bryce does it this way.
Oh, that's a really good question. One thing that Bryce does really well is he's just personal with them. He opens up to them. To love is to be vulnerable. So being vulnerable with the person in front of you and not treating them as a statistic of, hey, I want to get them saved so I can put this on my card of ching, like got someone saved, but realizing that that's a soul in front of you. And
How are you
up.
able to do that though with a camera over your shoulder though? Like that's what still doesn't make sense to me is like, you know, obviously you're just meeting them and you're like, hey, I really care about you, but do you care if someone captures this moment?
Right.
But I'm really here for you. Like, how do you do that without it seeming?
That's the number one question I get asked a lot, especially as the videographer.
Sure.
People don't care.
Oh, they don't.
I mean, obviously some people have gotten angry, pushed us, all these things, but when I'm filming, I'm right there with Bryce, and they're just so invested in the convo because they're distracted from this world. So now the gears in their head are finally thinking oh wait, what happens? And they're just not even fazed by the camera.
So do you guys start off by saying, hey, there is a camera guy here? Is that cool?
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're just already filming, and if someone comes in the frame, Bryce just speaks to them. And other times we're like, hey, we talk, we want to hear, we talk to people for YouTube videos. We want to hear your story, and then we want to share our story.
Cool. And that's actually the camera then becomes a reason why to broach the conversation in the first place, right? Hey, we got this camera. You want to?
Right.
Yeah, that actually is a cool conversation starter.
Yeah.
What's the worst reaction someone's had to starting a conversation where it's not going to happen? It's not going to happen.
I don't know. Like you mean we ask and they just say no?
Yeah. What's the worst? That someone's that behaved when you're like, hey, can we? No, you know.
Nothing specific comes into my mind, but I know a lot of people have cussed Bryce out or gotten in his face, and we're just
it seems like they do that for the camera though. They don't.
Yeah, sometimes
they stay for that.
Yeah, sometimes they just want to put on a show, but other times people are literally just hurting and they don't want to speak to people.
Yeah. And
they don't want to be bothered, so
were you a camera guy before Bryce, or did you kind of just learn it to do this specifically for him?
Yeah, I was a camera guy before. I always wanted to do YouTube. I always loved making videos, but when I worked with Bryce, I got thrown in the fire of just learning and not knowing how to do anything with a podcast and learning how to do audio and learning just the best angle and lighting and all these things. So
what kind of camera do you shoot with?
We use a Sony FX3.
Is that yours or
it's the ministry's? Yeah.
So what are you going to do when you're not with the ministry? You got to do a Kickstarter to get yourself a camera or?
Well, I had camera gear, but I just sold it all because I felt led, but I don't know. Recently, what's been on my heart is just going minimal, just an iPhone.
That's
and it sounds super crazy, but I was just talking to one of my friends, and his friend has been doing YouTube for years and is successful, and he's been doing it all off of an iPhone.
You can do it off an iPhone.
Right. Totally. Especially now with these cameras, they're really good. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, but what about when people want you to come and do you, I mean, now that you've done stuff for Bryce, you must be getting calls from other people.
Yeah, I've gotten good opportunity just running with Bryce for the past year. So, yeah.
So are you going to keep doing that? Are you going to keep filming for other folks? And
I think my time filming for other people is kind of being put on a pause. I do want to film impactful videos. I know my calling is to impact digital media and spam Jesus on social media. So whether it's me in front of a camera or it's me behind the camera, I'm kind of just listening to the Lord on what he wants me to do.
Well, you got quite a resume from the last couple of years, from your moments in COVID, meeting Jesus, going full tilt with Pulse 100, working on a couple big campaigns, living in your car, and then reaching 400,000 plus people with Bryce in this past year on video. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a blessing. It's all the Lord. Like,
it is all the Lord, but I'm like sitting here considering it in this moment going, dang, Josh, you've done pretty good in these last couple. Like, you've been on a crazy journey. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Do you slow down enough to consider that? Because it's like pretty epic, actually.
Yeah, recently I've learned to slow down and just look at what the Lord's done and be grateful, and it helps battle against like always wanting to do more and more and more, and just realizing the Lord's faithfulness in my years.
I mean, I've been around the sun a few times, and there's always like a desire to be part of the next big thing. That's never going to go away.
Yeah.
But I think, especially when people are feeling sad if they're going to miss out, I'm like, hey, even if you have to sit this one thing out, there's always going to be a next big thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's always going to be, like, God is always doing something awesome on the earth. And just kind of watching you these last few years, because, like, it's interesting because while you're actually doing full-time ministry, you're also in this season of development. Like, you came to Pulse 100 in development, learning. I didn't actually realize how green you were when we met, but also how many big opportunities you got in that same pocket, like in that same window. And you're actually not that kid that I met then. Like, you've got so much experience under your belt that maybe I need to get a job working for you. But you take all that experience and then you get to kind of frame the world and do ministry the way you want to. So, like, forget about this next year and getting in front of the camera. If you get to do anything you want to do to put your dent in the universe, what's that thing that you would do?
Man, I think a big calling is living a quiet life with a family.
Go the other way.
But honestly,
quiet life. Okay.
Raising up troops, like kids that love the Lord, and hopefully, like, my family just impacts the world through digital media.
That's cool.
So, just a quiet life.
Quiet life that's been pretty loud for the last 3 years.
Right.
That's hilarious. Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, I've honestly been on a journey of realizing the balance of, like, doing social media, doing big things, but also living a quiet life. And the Lord, or Jesus, got alone with the Father, and he ran away from crowds, and he got up early and just prayed. And I think that's what consists of a quiet life, is having a small circle, having your 3, having your 12, and discipling people and being plugged into a church.
What does having your 12 mean?
Yeah, having
3 wives?
Oh
no, he doesn't mean that. Okay, not 3 wives. Okay.
Having three brothers around you that you just are consistent with. So right now I have 4 really, or now 5.
You're breaking the rules already. You just said having your 3, and we've just.
It's not a set number.
It's not a set number. Okay.
The goal is just to have, like, a small group of guys by your side that are gonna pray for you, that you can live in the light with. That when you mess up, you go to them and be like, "Hey, I messed up," and they pray for you. Having guys that call you higher, it stings, but at the end, a wise man loves instruction. So having guys that call you out for your nonsense.
So what's the 12 then? So the 3 is like a couple of really close people holding you accountable. So you said 12 too.
And then the 12 are the people that I still consider close to me, but honestly, people that I want to disciple.
I see.
So having 12 people that I just do life with, not necessarily people that I tell everything to, but just that I can be an example to and do every day with, and that I can just show what it looks like to live for Jesus, and they catch the vision and do it themselves, and then they go on to their people, 72, and then to hundreds and to thousands.
Yeah. It's going to mess up all those numbers, though, when you have a family, though.
Yeah. It will. But you'll have little troops running around
That's
loving
true.
the Lord.
Yeah. They're going to be. I thought maybe the 12 meant the amount of kids you wanted to have.
Oh.
Ooh, that's a lot of kids.
No. That is a lot.
And you'd have to be doing a lot of social media to pay for those mouths.
Right. I'm going to need a van for that.
If you have 12 kids, it won't be a quiet life ever.
It'll be a loud house.
Yeah.
That's funny.
How many kids, though?
I haven't thought about
He hasn't
that.
put a cap on it. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 brothers, 1 sister.
So 4. Usually, I feel like anybody who's grown up with siblings is like they land on, well, I'll have as many as I grew up with. That sounds like a good
that
number.
might be the case.
That sounds like a good number.
Yeah.
All right. So one last question. You talked about marriage and family. Like, how are you going to make this happen? What's going to happen here? What are you going to do? Like, how do you move forward with the personal life when you're a man of the multitudes?
Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom, and all will be added.
He's so polished. You're such a politician, man. You just don't break form. I try and poke, and I can't get nothing. All right, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. Answer with the word. That's what Jesus did when Satan came tempting him. So you're doing a great job. Josh, it's been such a joy getting to hang out with you this afternoon. I hope this has been fun for you.
Yeah, it has been. I'm thankful
totally
to sit down with you.
I'm totally random and all over the place, but this is a fun way to get to know you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Thanks for coming to Connecticut.
Of course, anytime.
All right, man. We'll see you. Next week on the Faith to Faith Gospel Cast, it is the season finale, and we will have none other than Roderick Blassingame coming to share his very powerful story. Don't miss it.